because I was seeing things. I was seeing spirits. I was seeing angels and shadow spirits. I would see what I called the gray people who would show up in my room in the middle of the night. And, I knew they were ghosts, but
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of the Spiritual Inspired podcast. I'm your host, Claudio Murgan. For older episodes, please visit gnostictv.com, YouTube channel, spiritualinspired.ca. My guest today is Lisa Campion. Lisa, thank you for joining me.
oh, I'm so glad. Thank you so much for having me here today.
You wrote so much about Reiki, many books, but I would like to start by asking you, how did the unseen world look to you at a young age?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because, I was one of those children that was born very, very psychic. So I think that a lot of my journey has come from trying to figure out what my experiences were as a very early child. And I was born in the 60s, and back then it just wasn't really something you could talk about. It's not like it is today where we have psychics on TV, where we have podcasts. I was trying to figure out what was happening. No internet, barely any books in the library. So that was for me a combination of trying to understand my own experiences and trying to sort of pretend to be normal in public, which wasn't really that easy for me, because I was seeing things. I was seeing spirits. I was seeing angels and shadow spirits. I would see what I called the gray people who would show up in my room in the middle of the night. And, I knew they were ghosts, but I didn't know what to do about it. And it was a intense, confusing, interesting, and sometimes terrifying way to grow up. And my parents were hippies, and they didn't really know what to do. My mother just said it was my imagination. Oh my goodness, you have such an imagination. And I was like, is that what it is? Really? I don't think so. So I feel like I've really dedicated my life to, first of all, try for my own self, trying to figure out what was happening, and then also help other people who are going through like a spiritual or psychic opening. Because, I wish I wrote the books I wish I could have found in the library, and I, you know, became the mentor and created the courses that I wish I could have taken that just weren't available. And that I feel like that's my passion, is to help people maybe who are going through that. And more people these days are going through that. My passion is to help other people go through it more easily and more gracefully than I did.
Beautiful. And I think you're lucky to having those type of parents, the hippie mindset parents that maybe they
Yeah,
didn't tell you to bottle it down, don't
right.
tell anyone. And at least they were willing to talk to you about what you were feeling. And do you
Yeah.
remember now any messages or downloads from that time that impact you later in life?
Yeah, I always had a very strong connection with my guides, and one of my so I knew that I didn't really have a word for that until much later in my life, but actually one of my most incredible messages came from um meeting um meeting Maharishi, meeting when I was 10 years old. So my hippie parents took me to transcendental meditation when I was 10, because that's what you did when you were hippie in 1974. And, when I learned how to meditate, I didn't know anything. I was just, going along for the ride. And Maharishi brought everybody back into the back room, and he gave like Shaktipat, an initiation. He give you your mantra, and he was speaking through a translator. And honestly, he looked sort of bored. He was like, blah, 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 blah. And then he really looked at me and he was like, ooh, he said, oh, honey, he was speaking to me through the translator. He's like, oh, honey, I'm so sorry for you. He's like, you have some gifts, and because you're here in America, they don't know what to do with you. He said, if you'd been born in my country, India, we would know what to do. But you're here in America, so you're just really out of luck. But you have to hang in there, because when you're an adult, you're going to help a lot of people. And I was like, oh my God, some adult said something to me. And it was very, 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 very impactful for me. but I had no idea really who he was until I went to college and studied comparative religion. And I was like, oh my goodness, I think that was Maharishi Yogi who actually said that to me. And so I had moments where people intervened and helped me. And I had many moments where I got spiritual messages. And I think the spiritual messages I got were pretty much the same thing Maharishi said. Hang in there, gonna be okay, you know. And it was okay. Then I went to college in the 80s, and it was the dawn of the new age. And suddenly there's psychics, and there's, writing books, and there's workshops, and there's new age bookstores. And it was to me like just so I was so grateful. I finally, got some powerful teachers and access to a lot of information. And that's when I started working actually as a psychic way back
Yeah.
then.
So
Yeah.
beautiful story, and I think you missed the opportunity to ask Maharishi to adopt you and take you with him in
No.
India to India.
Yeah, I know, I know. I just was so grateful. I had no idea who he was until I was in college, but I was so grateful that happened to me. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
you talk about developing empathic boundaries and
Hmm.
emphasize energy management for empaths. What
Yeah.
are your top tips for setting healthy boundaries and protecting personal energy in daily life?
That's such a great question. It is sort of the foundational place where I start with all of my students, whether you're a psychic or an empath, we need to start with energy management. So finding a way to it should be daily, like in the morning when you get up, before you go to bed, before you go into the supermarket, halfway through the supermarket, after you come out of the supermarket, you need to really ground. So take some breaths, be in your body, take some breaths to clear the energy that you picked up from other people, and imagine that you're in your own bubble, our own. It's really the outside edge of our energy field, which stretches out to about arm's length. If we imagine, pretend, or visualize that it's something more solid, empaths tend to have a very porous boundary there. So those are the things. We ground ourselves, we clear ourselves, and we redo our protections. And especially for empaths, this is can be like a life-changing experience. We can go from feeling like we can't leave our house, or we're just constantly overwhelmed, especially in crowded places, and we don't want to get off the couch because being out in the world is so challenging for us, which it truly truly is. And then these energy management basics are simple, they're not hard to do. The trick is to get good at them, to practice them, and to do them consistently over time. It strengthens our energy field so that we have better energetic boundaries. Once we have really good energetic boundaries, kind of gives us a leg to stand on so we can learn to set the trickier boundaries, which is really all about understanding when to say no and when to say yes.
Yeah, so I think even if you are
Yeah.
not necessarily a strong empath, I have second thoughts when I have to go or walk into a big crowd because regardless if you're an empath or not, you're going to attract some energy, something will
Yeah.
grab onto you and you might
Hmm.
come home with it. So yeah, you have to be very aware and have this type of practice to shut it off.
Yeah, for sure. And the more psychic we become, the more spiritual we become, the more we go further down our spiritual path, the more sensitive we become, the more empathic we become. Even if you don't identify yourself as being an empath, if you are a spiritual seeker, you're going to notice that you become more and more sensitive, I think, to other people's energy, the energy of the environments that we're in, and sometimes, spirits that are wandering around that maybe don't have our best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lisa, in your book, The Art of Psychic Reiki, you blend psychic guidance with Reiki healing. How do
Mhm.
these two modalities enhance each other in your practice?
Right. Yeah. Well, I learned Reiki in 1999, and back then it was still pretty fringe. It was still pretty, you know, it's not as popular as it is now. And I was also teaching psychic development, and I noticed that people were taking my Reiki classes, people were taking my psychic development classes, and they fit really well together because when we study Reiki, it often opens our psychic ability. So if and it's going to maximize your psychic. If you have a little bit, it's going to bring it to the top. And I would say that yoga, Reiki, and meditation are the three activities that we do in the modern world that really pop open our psychic abilities, and which I think is fantastic. And old school Reiki people, it's not really psychic development's not part of the traditional practice. So I encountered a lot of students who would have a psychic opening, and their Reiki teachers didn't know what to do with it. They were like, cut that out, stop doing that. Like, that's not part of Reiki. They would just kind of, or they just didn't know. Like, they weren't together. But to me, it seems so obvious that it would be together, because when we have more access to our psychic abilities, to our intuition, it can only enhance our Reiki sessions. And so many psychically inclined people start having psychic experiences when they become Reiki practitioners. So it just seemed to me like a perfect blend.
And do you feel that your practice and your modalities of helping others have evolved since you initially started, and how that happened?
Yeah, it's constantly evolving. And I think it should be. And I think we should do that. I think for me, it's a combination of just having a lot of practice doing sessions. So I had a very busy clinical practice. I've done over 15,000 sessions, and maybe more than that, in the past 25, 30 years. So just that, doing that will evolve it. But also I'm very committed to my own personal growth. So I'm a meditator. I'm always working on myself. I'm on my own spiritual path, and as I'm working on myself and growing and evolving, of course, my practice is going to grow and evolve too. And I think for a lot of us now, it's happening. And I really noticed this shift about 5 years ago, that my energy work stopped feeling so much like Reiki and started feeling like something else. And it took me a long time to really talk about it or figure out what it was. I think now most people call it quantum healing. I guess it's as good a name as anything else to describe what it is. But I think with quantum healing, where Reiki and many of the other healing modalities that we have been practicing use vibration, so they're vibrational healing. That might be you're working with essential oils, you're working with gemstones, you're doing sound healing, homeopathy, Reiki. All these things are vibrational healing, and they really impact us physically, emotionally, and mentally. But quantum healing uses light, and it's sort of the difference between the speed of sound and the speed of light. Light healing happens very quickly, very instantly. It happens sort of across dimensions, very powerfully, and really impacts the spiritual self, So kind of working through lineage issues, past life issues. I believe we're interdimensional beings, that are we're having an earth experience here, but we're evolving at a much higher level. And these quantum healings or light healings are really impacting us on that level. And since it's about 2020, I noticed a shift in myself, and so many other healers we've all sort of spontaneously reached this new level. And I think it has to do with our own level of consciousness too. Like as humanity is, raising its consciousness, and as we do our internal work and we're raising our consciousness, we just have access to these higher frequencies, and super exciting. Actually, I'm really happy to be doing it. It's a mystery that's continual. I'm like learning about it as I go, and I'm so happy because I don't know, it's so exciting, really.
Yes, I agree with you that
Yeah.
the higher level of consciousness can activate a lot of new features and skills
Yes.
within us. And yes, I think the Reiki approach is one path, but in my own experience, I met so many of my guests that they were activated energetically and guided to do energy healing with no previous Reiki practice. So it's pretty much like a different path or different stream of experience where they get the energy directly going through them, and then they move it
Yeah.
to wherever is necessary in the client's body.
Yeah, I think yes. And it's also, even when we're doing more channel healing, so quantum healing, I think is more of a channeled experience. I think it's really important to continue to understand we need good ethics. So we need to, understand, like when I started working as a psychic, I was 19, and I quickly realized I just didn't have enough skill. So I went back to school and became a therapist. And that training as a therapist has helped me really well throughout my life. And so I understand how to really support people that are, receiving a healing, that I have good ethics and, boundaries around the work that I do. And no, even if you're doing channeled healings, it's still really, really, really important to get some experience to learn about those aspects of it, because I've seen plenty of really skilled healers that are out there without that knowledge, and it's not so good. As healers, we often encounter people that are really, I always say nobody comes to my office because they're having a good day. So we need to be prepared to deal with people's trauma, and that's what comes up when people come to us. So even if you're doing channel healings, please get some training on how to work with people's trauma, how to manage your own energy, how to stay grounded, how to clear yourself, what are the ethical responsibilities we have as healers. So I think that's sort of an important foundation, and Reiki often gives us that foundation. But even if you're not going to do Reiki, please get some training in how we hold space for other people ethically and responsibly.
Yes, that's important. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lisa, can you explain what led you to create the Quantum Mystic Mystery School and how it supports spiritual evolution?
Oh, yeah. So a friend of mine a couple of years ago said, you want to start a mystery school?" And for me, like most of my work is about training healers, So I always say my mission in life is to create an army of healers to go out there and save the planet. So I have Reiki classes, I have psychic development classes, I even have a year-long apprentice program to train people how to become professional psychic healers. And I've also had a lot of people say, well, I want to do all the inner work, but I don't want to be a healer. So can you come up with a program that, is about spiritual development, consciousness raising, that's not geared for people that want to be healers? And that was really why we came up with the Quantum Mystic Mystery School, as a way to kind of surf the wave of human evolution that we're in right now, of consciousness evolution. And it really is about creating a container, a community, having mentorship, having a process that helps assist our consciousness raising. I think it's really painful and difficult and lonely to do it on your own,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
working inside the container of the school is such a beautiful way to do it. If you feel like you want to raise your consciousness, or it already is and you need some support, that's what that's all about.
Yes, it's interesting because even those who don't want to become the healers, maybe they
Mm-hmm.
don't realize that by changing themselves, they will change the environment they live in, and they
Yeah.
still make a difference no matter what.
I think it's the only thing we can really do to make a difference is to change our inner state. If we think that the outer world is a reflection of our inner state of consciousness, I know that the best thing I can do to change the outer world is to keep raising my own consciousness, and that has a ripple effect throughout the people I interact with, my students, the books that I write, just the people that I meet out in the world, or even just adding even more light into the world, which we certainly need at the moment. I think that's where we have honestly the most leverage, or everything that I know, that everything I do comes from that place and then ripples out through the actual things that I'm doing in the world.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Lisa, you mentioned that everything is energy, and when we throw words out there, some of that effect comes back to us. So I know you distinguish between curses and self-created energetic challenges. Can you share tips on how to differentiate and address each, please?
Yeah, I'm always a little shocked by how sensitive we are to the kind of curse energy, which is like, when other people wish us ill, you know, and the more I think light we are, the more sensitive we are, the bigger an impact it has on us. And there's just a lot of hate flying around the world right now, um and as humans, we have to be very, we have to practice a little psychic self-defense so that we can accumulate. I mean, I'm sure this happens to you, like if you have comments or haters on the work you're putting out in the world. It happens to me, it happens to all of us who are, forward facing in the world and producing content, you know. And I think if we don't kind of clean that up, it can have an impact on us energetically. We can feel a bit tired, depleted, depressed. We can want to give up the work we're doing, and I'm going to stop my YouTube channel because I can't handle it anymore, whatever, right? So we need help with that. And that can make all the difference. I think it just when people like you stand in your power and put your work out into the world, it makes people really angry. It pisses people off. Some people will become fans and some people will become haters. And it just triggers people that are not standing in their power, you know? And we become very susceptible to that. So we have to clear it. And then we have to be super mindful about the energy we're putting out, because it goes both ways. So what are you thinking about other people? Are you ill wishing? The malediction is what my psychic teacher called it, when you wish somebody ill. And that it's really bad for your karma, you know? And the more sensitive we are, the more quickly it comes back. So I think finding healthy ways to process our feelings of anger. Maybe you journal it. Maybe, we're allowed to have our feelings. It's just really good not to take our feelings out on ourselves or other people, because there's consequences when we do it that way. And I think the advent of the internet has given people a sort of anonymous way to vent out their anger and frustration on other people without them thinking like there's an impact, but there really is. So let's all be responsible, please, with our intentions and understand that it counts. And whether you know it or not, it's going on your record if you're not clean with your wishes for other people.
Yeah. Usually if I see a negative comment, my reply is, I love you too. And
Mm-hmm.
the danger these days with what you mentioned, the internet, is that a lot of bots can be created, a lot of fake accounts. And
Yeah.
if, let's say, 1,000 accounts will send the same distorted negative message to one individual only, that can be overwhelming. And
Yes.
unless, as you said, have the right mindset, the right energetic protection, and you understand that that message is not for you because those guys have nothing to do with your message,
Yeah.
then maybe you're gonna just skip off and don't bother with that.
Yeah. I think it's about not taking it personally. I think it's about making sure we're not doing it, and also about clearing our energy so that we're not getting sort of the accumulation of that negative mojo on us over time.
Yeah. Lisa, we know about personalities in the spiritual community, and even at your level with the school and preparing spiritual leaders and healers. Do you still need your own teacher, your own um, go-to person that can teach you something else or reveal more about yourself?
Yes, I never stop growing. I never stop learning. I never stop doing my own work. I don't know. I feel like that's the fun part. And it can be really challenging. It's still really challenging for me, to do my own work, but I don't know. To me, that's where things get good. And I have my own support team. So I have people that, I work with, coaches and therapists and energy healers, just to keep myself, I don't know, like healthy and happy and productive. And yeah, I definitely have my own spiritual teachers. I think we have to keep growing. And, I'm really committed to staying sort of the cutting edge of my own growth. And I know I'm sort of skating that cutting edge is where I feel the most alive, you know? And if I do it too much, if we do it too much, we can sort of destabilize ourselves. If we do it too little, we stagnate, you know? There's sort of a sweet spot for me where I'm growing enough, I grow a little, I integrate, I grow a little, I integrate. And that's where I think it's really good.
Yes, beautiful. And when someone wants to work with you on igniting his or her psychic abilities without knowing if that person has an inch or an inclination towards that, what's your process? How do you approach, let's say, the first step?
Everybody can do it. Everyone is psychic, everyone is intuitive. It's just a natural part of our human existence. I don't think we would have evolved as far as we have without this ability. And I think it's a lot like musical ability and or athletic ability. Like everybody has some. Some people have more than others, and we all have some. So I think we need to drop the idea that, you know, people are born, you're born with this gift or you're not. It's like, are you born an athlete? Are you born a musician? Yes, and you still have to work it. You still have to practice. You still have to put your time in. And when we look at professional psychics, we need to understand that they have worked as hard as professional athletes and professional musicians. And if you really want to do that, and you can, and there's sort of some simple things you can loop into your daily life to help you. It's like a muscle to help you exercise the muscle of being psychic. So I say it's so useful. Everyone should do it, and I think when we tap more into our intuition and our psychic ability, first of all, it helps us navigate our own life better. It's sort of a strange world out there. Every day gets a little rockier and stranger. So I think it's really useful right now to have that guidance to help us navigate through our own life. And I feel like no matter what you do for work, there are going to be times where you become of service to other people. You're going to open your mouth and say something amazing that somebody needs to hear that day, and that's pretty cool too.
Yes, and along the same line, do you see, based on your experience and your practice, that more people are waking up and more light is coming into the world these days?
Yes, yes, I have always seen that. I feel like every generation is born more psychic, more sensitive, more intuitive, more wise than the previous generation. I think that as there's more conversation about what's happening, so podcasts like this, books, psychics on TV, new age bookstores, there's like, God bless the TikTok psychics, they're really make the conversation something approachable. So I think people are not hiding their experience. In the past, when I was growing up, I think there were a lot of psychics, but nobody talked about it. It was, you know, otherwise they drag you to the church and throw holy water on you, right? Or you'd end up in a mental hospital. So I'm so grateful for the open conversation. And I also think that as we're in this acceleration of human consciousness, and as we're doing more yoga, Reiki meditation, where our gifts are opening up even more. So I think it's all of those things. And I think it's great. I'm so happy.
And going back to your open-minded parents, what do they think, or what did they think over the years about your spiritual development?
They were amazing about it. They've been some of my biggest fans, and it really also sparked them to continue. They were very spiritual people, and they were the ones taking me to meditation, you know, classes. And they never stopped. They really had their own amazing spiritual growth, which I found so inspiring too. So yeah, I was lucky to grow up in such an open environment. I honestly was.
And these days, do you work with, if of course, if you can share with any particular entities from the other side that guide you through this labyrinth of daily life?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely work with a collective of very high level, quantum healing guides. They don't have names. They're not anybody that, you would have heard of, or I would even ever heard of. When I do quantum healings and I'm working on the quantum stuff, they come through. I have sort of a different set of guides when I'm writing. I'm working on another book right now, and I can feel them working with me. I mostly with the ascended masters and the angels are where I like to tap. I love the ascended masters because I feel like they really understand the human experience, you know, and that it's really hard to be a human. It's really hard to human, and it can be quite painful or lonely, and it's just it seems like one challenge after another, and they really understand that because they were human and they have walked. I feel very comfortable walking in the footsteps of the ascended masters and grateful for their help. And then the angels, I mean, they're so um, I think they're super attuned right now to the evolution of the human consciousness. So if you're working on consciousness raising, you know, that's good. And everyone that I've ever worked with has their own team of spirit guides, their own team. I do, you do, we all do. And it might be a mix of like your relatives who have passed over, your ancestor spirits, the certain guides that are working with you, you know, they might be sort of project specific. So there might be guides that are just focused on this podcast. There might be other guides you're working with that are, helping you with your personal spiritual evolution. Um, and that they change. Sometimes they fluctuate depending on what stage we're in and what we're doing. And sometimes we have guides that stick with us from, through our whole life and maybe throughout all of our lifetimes. I think it's quite a fluid situation. And one of the things I like to do the most is help people who their guides are, who their team is, as I see it, um, today, because I think we just feel better when we know we're supported.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
for sure. Thank you for sharing. And Lisa,
Yeah.
some of us find their own skills or tune up their own skills and heal trauma by attending various type of ancient ceremonies like a sweat lodge or a cacao ceremony or
Mhm.
even one deeper in the Amazonian forest. Have you tried anything like that before?
Sure. Throughout my life, I've done all of those things. Well, I've never been to the Amazon, but I've done sweat lodges. I've done participated in plant medicine. I've I've done many of those things and continue because I think you know, it's important. The rituals are so powerful. And when we work with rituals, whether maybe it's in a formalized religion or maybe it's with indigenous, teachers, there's something about that's so comforting and opens us you know, to these other non-ordinary experiences that I think have such a profound impact on us. When we touch the non-ordinary, it changes us. So however you can experience that, I encourage it as long as you're in safe hands. I worry a little bit about you know, the backyard ayahuasca ceremonies. Like if you're going to do that, please do it with somebody really reputable who can hold the space, who can truly hold space for you as you open up to that trauma and that other dimensions. So as long as you know you're in good hands, I think it's can be super powerful. Yeah.
Wow, I'm so glad that I asked this question because some of the psychics and Reiki experts, they don't want to try anything like that. They just want to stay to stick to the path and be you know pleased with what they are pleased with the level they reach. I mean, they might go in a different type of direction for growth, but not the one I just mentioned. Yeah, thank you.
I think it's such a unique path. Like our connection to ourself and to divine source is totally unique, totally individual. And especially as you kind of get higher in your levels of consciousness, we have to forge our own way. We have to, it's very personal to you what is going to work for you. And my feeling is go as deep and as wide, study with as many teachers, try as many things as you can. And be curious about it. Just make sure you're in good hands. That's my one thing. Yeah, try everything. Try things that appeal to you because we need to get out of the box. And sometimes we play out a certain path. You might study Reiki for 20 years and just sort of hit the end of it and be like, well, I've learned all I can. Or you might study with a tradition or a teacher and kind of play out you've got what you could get out of it, and then it's time to move on to something else. I'm not afraid of that. I do that, and I'm just think we might move forward faster if we all were open to that idea.
Yes, indeed. And I am part of a community that has a number of Reiki masters, and they reached the highest level, and they thought that somehow they are blocked, they cannot evolve anymore, and they join this community because it has a very interesting way of promoting energy healing,
Yeah,
and their imagination just is blooming, and
yeah,
they can do much more with this new approach.
yeah. Reiki especially is such a great it's such a great introductory practice. Um, and there are many people who that's their path and they don't ever leave that path, and that's wonderful. But for a lot of us, it's sort of a foundational practice. It opens the door. It opens the door. We walk through that door, and then we continue to open other doors. So I think that's okay too.
Yeah. Lisa, if you will be stranded on an island, what will be the three things you will take with you?
A copy um, of Yogananda's book, Autobiography of a Yogi, which I literally take with me every time I travel. That would be it. Um, I don't know, something to sit on so I could meditate, and probably a journal I could write in. Those are the three things that I would need.
Interesting, because I will take either the Second Coming of Christ or the Bhagavad Gita. God talks
Uh-huh.
with Arjuna. So, how
Interesting.
did you come across Yogananda?
Um, somebody gave it to me when I was a teenager, and it just changed my life. I don't know, I've read it 100 times, and that's the one book I always have with me. I should consider some of your ideas. I think those are great ideas. The other one that I've always wanted to really get into is the um oh the big blue book. Um
The Blue Book is the God Talks to Arjuna, the
yeah.
explanation of Bhagavad Gita. It's in
Yes.
2 volumes, the same,
Okay.
similar to Second Coming of Christ, but the same, that one
Mm-hmm.
is red.
Yes. There's some that I think would be I might only be able to get through if I was on a desert island, and those might be that. I like your ideas. I think they're fantastic.
Yes, I
Yeah.
mean, this one I just mentioned, God Talks to Arjuna, changed my life. And
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
read the Second Coming of Christ,
Mm,
and the other books by Yogananda. And in fact, I'm a devotee of
me too.
self-realization fellowship. And
Yeah, me too. Since I was 18.
wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Perfect. And in fact, I had a
Yeah.
guest the other day who is a psychologist, and he's also a devotee, and he's much younger than me, than us. And he also enjoyed the books and the teachings, and he was attracted to Yogananda, and he lives nearby in California.
I love Yogananda. There's so many amazing spiritual masters, of course, but he has a special spot in my heart.
Yeah. Lisa, if you were to create a magical vacation spot just for healers and empaths, what would it look like?
I love, I love sort of tropical things. I understand why so many people go to Bali or Hawaii. I think there's something so beautiful about that, the soft tropical energy we have in that place. Lots of water, rain, waterfalls, rainforests, that kind of environment. Costa Rica is another place that I love to visit. Something about the rainforest, I think. Although I've had some incredibly powerful experiences in the desert. So Sedona always moves the needle forward for me. But I think as empath, I would be like, let's live on a little hut. Let's go to one of those places in the Maldives that has like a little hut on the water
Yeah,
and
it's nice.
really, really get in with the water element. Water can be super healing and nurturing and restorative. So, but I think also those things are beautiful, but often it comes back into our internal process, that is there an inner sanctuary? Is there a place inside of yourself that is like that you can bring with you no matter where you are?
Yes, thank you. And who will play you in a Netflix series as a healer or a psychic?
Oh my goodness. I have no idea. I don't know. You tell me. Who do you think? Who do you think it would be? I'm not sure I can answer that question.
I don't know, but there is this is a question you can think about.
I will. That's a good one. Oh my goodness.
Anything else you like to share about your books or your programs we didn't touch on?
I just would say, if you feel like you're going through a psychic opening or a spiritual opening, my recent book is called Awakening Your Psychic Abilities, and it really is a beautiful guide for people that are having, that kind of opening and want some help with it. And just stop by my website and, lisacampion.com, send me an email, leave me a message. I'm here for supporting people who are undergoing a psychic opening and need help, need mentorship, because like I said in the beginning, I had to do it alone and it was so not fun. So any day that I can help another person go through that is
Perfect. Lisa, thank you very much. We are at the end of our lovely discussion. Any final thoughts?
oh wow. I just want to thank you so much for your incredible podcast and the work you're doing in the world. So thank you for
Thank you.
that and spreading the light the way that you do, and thank you for inviting me to be here today.
Thank you very much. And to my viewers, thank you for watching. Share it, leave a comment, visit the links I mentioned at the beginning of the interview. And until next time, love and gratitude.